Fact 5. Have any type of sugar you like. They're all the same from Glucose Revolution. Have we been lied to about healthy sugars? What if I told you that honey, brown sugar, coconut sugar, agave syrup, maple syrup, and ordinary white table sugar are basically the same thing? Most of us have been taught that some sugars are healthy and others are bad. But according to glucose scientist Jessie Inchauspé, also known as the glucose goddess, that's not what the science shows. Let's find out why. Imagine you have a spoonful of white sugar and a spoonful of honey. They look different. They taste slightly different. One comes from sugar cane, the other from bees. But once they enter your digestive system, your body doesn't care where they came from. It sees the same molecules, glucose and fructose. And that's what matters. Not the marketing, not the color, not the price tag, just the molecules. In fact, brown sugar, coconut sugar, raw sugar, maple syrup, honey, molasses, palm sugar, agave syrup, and many other sweeteners are all made primarily of glucose and fructose. Some contain a little more of one molecule than the other, but they all create spikes in your body. This means that swapping white sugar for brown sugar isn't a health hack. It's mostly a color change. And despite what many advertisements suggest, natural sugar isn't automatically healthier. Think about it. All sugar comes from plants. White sugar comes from sugarcane or sugar beets. Honey starts as flower nectar. Maple syrup comes from trees. They're all natural. But natural doesn't mean harmless. By the time these sugars reach your small intestine, your body has reduced them to the same basic molecules. So what about dried fruit? Many people think dried mangoes, dates, raisins, and other dried fruits are healthy alternatives to candy. The problem is concentration. When water is removed from fruit, the sugar becomes highly concentrated. You can easily eat the sugar equivalent of several pieces of fruit in just a few bites. This creates much larger glucose spikes than eating whole fruit. That's why whole fruit is usually a better choice. The fiber slows down digestion and helps reduce the spike. Now let's talk about one of the biggest myths, agave syrup. You've probably heard that agave has a lower glycemic index than sugar. That's true. It causes a smaller glucose spike. Sounds good, right? Not so fast. Agave contains around 80% fructose, while regular table sugar contains about 50%, and fructose can be even more problematic than glucose. Unlike glucose, fructose is processed almost entirely by the liver. Too much fructose can contribute to fat buildup in the liver, insulin resistance, and weight gain. So while agave may create a smaller glucose spike, it can create a bigger fructose burden. In other words, a lower glycemic index doesn't automatically mean healthier. What about honey? Honey contains antioxidants. But here's the catch. The amount is tiny. According to the book, you can get the same antioxidants found in a teaspoon of honey from about half a blueberry. So eating honey specifically for antioxidants doesn't make much sense when you're also getting a large dose of sugar. The good news is that you don't need to obsess over which sugar is best. If you're going to eat sugar for pleasure, choose the one you genuinely enjoy. Use honey if you love honey. Use maple syrup if you love maple syrup. Use brown sugar if that's your favorite. Just understand that your body sees them all in a very similar way. And whenever possible, satisfy your sweet tooth with whole fruit. Apples, berries, pears, peaches, and oranges come packaged with fiber, water, vitamins, and nutrients. That's how nature intended sugar to be consumed. But what about artificial sweeteners? The research is still evolving. Some artificial sweeteners may increase insulin levels, affect gut bacteria, or increase cravings for sweet foods. Others appear to have little effect on blood sugar. The sweeteners with the least impact on glucose and insulin seem to be stevia, monk fruit, allulose, erythritol. Meanwhile, some sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, maltitol, and acesulfame K may have undesirable effects for certain people. The bigger lesson isn't to replace every gram of sugar with sweeteners. It's to slowly reduce our dependence on sweetness itself. Because sweetness can be addictive. The more sweet foods we eat, the more we crave them. Over time, reducing sweetness can actually retrain your taste buds. Foods that once seemed bland start tasting naturally sweet, and cravings become less intense. So what's the main takeaway? Sugar is sugar. Honey isn't a magical health food. Brown sugar isn't healthier than white sugar. Agave syrup isn't a free pass. The healthiest choice is usually whole fruit, and if you decide to enjoy sugar, do it intentionally. Enjoy it fully and don't feel guilty, because the goal isn't perfection. It's understanding what you're eating and making better choices most of the time. That's the real hack.